will control the vertical.
Welcome to Anthologic, the TV anthology podcast. I am your host, Mark. Anthologic is a podcast dedicated to exploring the good, the bad, and the odd of horror, science fiction, and the best of mystery suspense anthology shows and series on TV. Join me as we slip through the cracks of reality to approach the extremes of experience, where we can peruse the stories and art of a sinister fairground of strange and wonderful rides. And now we go on to the show that is the focus of this particular episode. Welcome to this episode of Anthologic with your host Mark. Today we're going back to a series that was first broadcast in 1973, made in Australia, an unusual anthology series called The Evil Touch. It was various production houses in Australia set this one up, and it turned into a one-series anthology. So different stories each week, but some of the guest stars did reoccur in one or two in a couple of episodes rather than just one. Ran for 26 weeks, and it's called The Evil Touch. It had an interesting host, Anthony Quayle, who's got a fairly distinctive and interesting voice, would come on and sort of give some vague comments about the nature of evil and the nature of humanity at the beginning and the end. And the stories apparently were mostly supernatural, but there were some whodunits, some science fiction, some sort of kind of murder sort of mysteries. And they were about half an hour. They, as I say, it was an Australian series, but they often brought in an American star. In fact, I think every episode has an American star. And some were tempted because they were also offered the chance to direct. There was a couple of episodes that were directed by the stars, so it's kind of cool. One in particular that's sort of notable for people who like TV anthology and TV horror as well is, for example, Darren McGavin got to direct an episode and star in a couple of those. Things like that. In fact, I think Darren McGavin actually starred in 3. And also Vic Morrow was another one who did that. And it's, Now, I believe most, if not all of the episodes of this series are on YouTube. They're not great quality, but they are on YouTube. And the one I'm going to be talking about tonight, called The Lake, is definitely on YouTube. And I will put a link in the show notes so you can come and watch the episode yourself. It's an interesting series. Got a kind of predictably cheesy, spooky soundtrack. It's kind of one of those you'd hear it and you think, yeah, that's a horror anthology or a mystery anthology. It's kind of like that. And while its main actors tend to be sort of reasonably well-known American actors, most of the other parts were filled by Australian actors, sometimes doing a sort of fairly neutral accent. And you can kind of tell looking at the series that it's set in Australia, but it certainly is in America. The sort of cars and the boats are just different, it's stuff like that. Now, back in when this was made, Australian TV was actually still broadcasting in black and white, but to make this an marketable internationally, this was actually filmed in colour and on film, so it could be sold overseas, and it was on UK TV, for example. Anthony Quayle does add a touch of class. He's a kind of Mephistopheles character. He's swirly smoke, and he's kind of standing there talking in his Anthony Quayle kind of voice, obviously, and it's kind of fun. Now let's get on to this episode. This first episode is called The Lake, and as I say, I put a link to this in the show notes on YouTube. And the main star in this one is Robert Lansing. He's probably familiar from sort of 60s and early 70s American TV. He probably went on to later than that. But I kind of know his face, and I had to look it up. But then when I saw what he's been in, I realised what it was. He's in an episode of Star Trek called Assignment Earth, which is the final episode of season 2, where they go back. The Star Trek goes back to 1968, and there's this strange time-travelling character called Gary Seven, who's played by Robert Lance in this Up to Shenanigans. It's kind of a memorable episode for some of its scene shots, if nothing else. Now, in this, he is a man who's been married for 20 years. His wife is very, very shrewish, but she won't divorce him, and he's kind of having an affair with his secretary and wants to get rid of his wife. Interesting this, because his wife kind of looked familiar, and I was thinking, I've seen that woman somewhere before, but I couldn't place her. But when I looked it up, it turns out she is the actress name is Anne Haddy, and for British and Australian listeners, she actually became the sort of matriarchal figure of Helen Daniels from the Australian soap opera Neighbours. And it was kind of a bit of a shock, but then when you go back and watch the episode again, it's like, yeah, that's Helen. Yeah, you can see it's Helen. Anyway, she's this shrewish kind of wife who just refuses to divorce him or let him go. She wants the respectability of marriage, I think is how she puts it, which is kind of odd, right? We see, I'm going to kind of spoil the episode here. We see him going to a psychiatrist and sort of professing suicidal thoughts, but it's just the setup. He's basically wants to top his wife by taking her out to the lake and accidentally on purpose tipping the boat. So she falls in and it appears she can't swim and she drowns. Just before all this is kind of a wedding anniversary thing with friends, and he gives her a ring, which is it's kind of flashy, big stone in it, and so that's part of it. But we see the ring on her hand, that kind of plays back into this film throughout, and essentially she goes into the lake, and we find out it's a bottomless lake, and we don't know what's down all this. And anyway, it turns into a Telltale Heart kind of story. It is effectively Telltale Heart, and it's kind of okay. It's not great, but it's okay. You can kind of see it coming from the near the beginning, really. The only thing I'm interested is it supernatural or is it like sending her husband mad deliberately kind of thing? And I won't spoil it, but that's the kind of vibe. It was alright. I mean, it's obviously riffing on the Twilight Zone or Night Gallery kind of thing. It felt kind of most like Night Gallery, actually. They did kind of stretch the story out. Even though it was only 25 or 30 minutes, it kind of felt like it was quite heavily padded and kind of overwrought. But, this was the early 70s, and that's the kind of thing you'd get, I would imagine, at that point. Yeah, and it's okay. It's okay. I will be watching more of these at some point. But if you know Telltale Heart, you know this story basically. Okay, let's kind of wind it up there. So, thanks for listening, and until next time, is anybody out there?
We now return control of your television set to you until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to